Well, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you again. Excuse me. Wonderful to be with you again for another one of our morning prayer times together. Today is Wednesday, the 26th of August. So we're really getting towards the end of the summer break and heading into September. Now we've got services starting up and everything's kind of going on and schools and all type of thing. So it's going to be a bit of a crazy few weeks coming up, I think. So we're going to be really looking to spend time praying, and the morning prayer thing, as I've said before, what we're going to do is we're going to get to the end of Mark's Gospel, take a tiny break, and then I'm going to come back with something new, which I'm quite excited about, which will kind of follow the same pattern as morning prayer, but it's going to be a little bit different how we do it. So I'll let you know more about that at the time. But we are very much into the final kind of parts of Mark's Gospel. So it's felt right to kind of really focus and hone in on those passages, to really kind of spend time really looking at what the passages are saying. So we're not going to have any music or anything along those lines. We're going to really dive almost straight into the passage. Then we finish by saying the Lord's Prayer together, and yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing. So a little bit of background as to where we are before we listen to the passage from today. So as I said, we've been working our way from start to finish through Mark's Gospel, and we've been really getting into things now. Jesus has got his followers with him. He's been teaching, he's been healing, he's been doing ministry, he's been doing extraordinary things. But now him and his followers are in Jerusalem. They've been welcomed in as heroes. Jesus has been seen as the person who's going to kind of free everybody from Roman kind of rule and so on. But what Jesus has been doing whilst in Jerusalem is causing a huge amount of problems for those, especially who are in religious authority, for priests and elders of the Jewish faith. They do not like him at all. He has challenged them. He has undermined them. He has told people about how they're kind of proud of themselves, about how they're deserving themselves. He has really made himself phenomenally unpopular with those in leadership of the Jewish faith, and they see him as a really big threat. They see him as a risk, and there is now an active plan to get rid of Christ, to kill him. And in the last passage that we read just before this, Jesus was with his followers celebrating the feast of Passover. We talked about Passover, this old Jewish festival where the angel of death passed over the houses of the Israelites when they were slaves in Egypt. So Jesus and his followers have been celebrating that particular feast, that particular festival. Jesus has just had the Last Supper with his friends, so the supper that starts the whole thing about communion, which we celebrate today, of Jesus saying, "This is my body and this is my blood," about the bread and the wine, and that how he now is the sacrificial lamb. In the Old Testament, a sacrifice of a lamb was given in atonement for things that he did wrong, in atonement for sin. Jesus now saying, that lamb is me. I'm going to give my body and my blood so that everyone, no matter what they've done, can start again. But also what we saw in the last passage was Judas. Judas has betrayed Christ. He's going to sell him out. And he's waiting for a time when he can get Jesus arrested. So Jesus and his disciples are to celebrate the Passover together. Jesus has done the Last Supper. This is my body. This is my blood. His disciples have sung one final hymn, and they've just gone out onto the Mount of Olives, which is very near where they're staying. And we pick up the story there. So this is Matthew chapter 14, starting to read at verse 27. So Jesus on the Mount of Olives with his followers, having just had a meal with them together. "You will all fall away," Jesus told them, "for it's written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will become scattered." And that, you can find that reading as in Zechariah. Jesus often quoted parts from the Old Testament. "You will all fall away," Jesus told them, "for it's written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I'll go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter declared, "Even if all fall away, I will not." "I tell you the truth," Jesus answered. "Today, yes, tonight, before the cockerel crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. But Peter insisted emphatically, Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the others said the same. I love this reading. It's not a comfortable reading. It's not a very encouraging or uplifting reading. But it's properly human. It's exactly what we do. So Jesus has been building his disciples up for what's about to happen. He's in previous passages talked about how difficult things are going to get, how they need to be watchful and alert with hope, because there's going to be dark days ahead where they're really not sure what's happening. He has talked about his burial when a woman came and saw him with a jar of very expensive perfume. Jesus said, "She's preparing me for my burial." And so he's kind of hinted at this fact that he's going to leave them. Something's going to happen. And then he talked about at the Last Supper, one of them is going to betray him and sell him out. And now here he is with his followers, and he's being very brutally honest with you. And he says, all of you are going to fall away. All of you are going to disown me. Like sheep, you're going to be scattered. And that must be a very difficult thing to take from him. Because he basically is telling them that they're going to disown him. He's saying, you're all going to run. What's going to happen means you're going to scatter. You're not going to stick with me through this. You're all going to run. But Peter is absolutely indignant about this. Peter is one of those people who, and you find this through the stories of Christ, you find this follower of his, Peter. Peter's the one who really wears his heart on his sleeve, speaks often before he thinks, and just kind of, it gets it out there. No, Christ, this isn't right. Peter's the one who said to Christ, if it's you on the water, tell me it's you and I'll come out and see you. Not really thinking about what he was saying, but then actually starting to walk on the water. And only a few moments later, Peter suddenly realizes, hang on a minute, I'm walking on the water. And he starts to sink and Jesus has to save him. But the idea of, I just want to do what's the right thing. I want to say it. I want to do it. Peter's one of those people who really kind of heart on the sleeve kind of guy. So when Jesus says, you're all going to fall, you're all going to scatter, when this goes down and it all goes wrong, none of you are going to stay with me, you're all going to disown me. Peter's like, no, I'm not. Even if everyone else here disowns you, I will never disown you, ever. And Jesus says, Peter, you will. Even tonight, before the cockerel crows twice, you will deny that you know me 3 times. And Peter's genuinely upset about this. Genuinely upset that Jesus seems to think he's going to let him down. No, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you, says Peter. And then all the other followers that are with them, all of Jesus' close friends and disciples say the same thing. We would never disown you. But what we know is that they did. We know that when it got very difficult and when that Peter was genuinely under threat of suffering the same as Christ, of him being arrested, of him being possibly crucified, Peter's response wasn't to remain a loyal and true friend to Christ. It was to deny that I even know him. We'll read about that in a bit. So often, when it's easy, we make promises. But when they are tested, we revert to looking after ourselves. We say things with really good intention. I have no doubt of the intention of Peter here. He's being a good friend. He's saying, no, I'll never let you down. Of course I wouldn't. I love you. You're my friend and I'll follow you wherever you go. I'm never going to disown you. Words are really cheap sometimes. But it's when push comes to shove. Well, then where our loyalty lies gets really tested. Jesus knows this. And in some ways, I think he's almost pitying Peter. He's like, you know what, Peter? You're going to disown me. And you're going to feel awful about it. It's going to be horrible for you because you know that you've let me down. Now, the beauty of this is when we come to the end of the story, not only is Peter forgiven, but Peter's the one on whom the church begins. He is the rock that Jesus uses to begin the church. The church that you and I are part of begins with this man, Peter, who denies he even knows Christ. But we'll get onto that in a bit. What I love about this story is this isn't a conversation between, kind of followers and leader. It's not a conversation between the Son of God and those who should bow to worship him. This is a conversation between friends who have been through a lot together, who have journeyed together for 3 years, who have spent day in, day out, visiting different places and people's houses and doing amazing things together. This is a conversation between friends who have journeyed through life together. It's not a conversation of you work for me, therefore you should follow me. These are mates. These are friends together. And so it's no wonder that Peter's so hurt by the idea that Christ thinks he would disown him. What we see displayed here isn't judgment, but love for one another. On the one hand, Jesus almost preparing them for the pain they're going to feel. You're going to scatter like sheep. And I don't hate you for that. I don't judge you for that. I love you. And it's going to be really painful for you when you see what they're doing to me, and the fact that you have stayed away, that you've denied knowing me. That's going to eat you up. Jesus has compassion and love for them as he's telling them this. And yet their love for him comes through. We would never disown you. How could you think that we would? And yet what we know is that they did. The truth is, we all will say things that then we kind of don't follow through on. We make promises we can't keep. There's times when we're loyal, there's times when we're not. There's times when we say we will stick with you through thick and thin, unless it gets very difficult, and then we'll look after ourselves. Actually, we'll kind of stay away. There's times when our friendships are genuinely tested. And sometimes we don't live up to that test. There's times when I have not been the friend I needed to be or should have been. Sometimes there's been mitigating factors. Sometimes there's been other stuff going on. But there's definitely times when I just haven't followed through on the promises that I've made. And there are times when others have done the same. Oh, we'll be there for you. We'll stand by you. And they're nowhere to be seen when actually it gets very difficult. And the thing is true, I've done the same with God. I've done the same with my faith, with Christ. Oh, Christ, I love you, and I love the fact that you have died for me, and you've done all this for me, and you've set me free and give me purpose and hope in life. Oh, I will live my life for you, unless it gets a bit tricky and a bit difficult, when then I just want it to be a bit comfortable. Thank you. Christ, I will go where you guide me. I will do what is necessary. I will go to the places you call me to, as long as they've got really good Wi-Fi and good coffee, and it's nice and it's friendly. If it isn't, then please don't call me there. If it's difficult, please don't call me there. I've been thinking a lot about this with regards to rural ministry. I was chatting to a friend just a couple of days ago about kind of rural ministry, and he said, why do you go for these places? Why have you gone somewhere where there's so many churches and not big congregations and it's just difficult? Why have you gone there? And it's not because I'm a hero. Many of you will know that I am not. And it's not because I'm some kind of altruistic kind of sacrificial kind of living person. It's because it's where God's called us. And because I genuinely believe that God's not finished with these places yet. He's going to keep calling people. It'll be changing? Yes. It'll be new? Yeah. But God's here and he's doing stuff. It was tested, was that promise. I made a promise to God. I said, I'll go where you call me. I'm happy and honoured to go to the places that perhaps people don't want to go to, that don't look easy, where ministry is difficult, where there's lots of small kind of congregations that are getting older and perhaps failing in some ways, and where things look like they're drawing to an inevitable close, I will go there. It was really easy to say that when there was nothing else on the table, when there was no other offers coming in, when there was no other role I was going for. Easy. But when other things come on the table that look a bit brighter and a bit shinier, that call is tested. And will I still follow Christ wherever he leads? Or will I go, you're going somewhere a bit difficult. I don't want to go there. I'm going to stay here, or I'm going to go over here where it's a bit easier, or a bit shinier, or a bit nicer, or I've got a nicer house, or nicer friends, or I've got things going on, or it's a nicer place to live, or I've got a bit more money coming in. That's where I'm going. I know you want me to go over there, Christ, but not sure about that. And we all do this. We all are Peter. We all say, I will go wherever you lead, Christ. I will follow you wherever it is. No matter how difficult it gets, I'm with you. Unless it's really difficult and you're asking a lot of me. The truth is, in our lives, God is going to ask a lot of us. He's going to ask us to change. He's going to ask us to be sacrificial. He's going to ask us to give up precious things. He's going to ask us to go into places where it's difficult. He's going to ask us to be unpopular. He's going to ask us to do things which are hard. He's going to ask us to be uncomfortable. He's going to ask us to give more. He's going to ask us to be people who live differently, who are friendly to people who don't offer it back, who give kindness to those who will not offer it back, who do things which stand out, who speak out against injustice, those who stand up for people who have no voice of themselves, those who say things which will be phenomenally unpopular amongst our friends and our family, those who do not just go with the crowd, those who are willing to put ourselves on the line for Christ and for others, those who love God with everything we've got and love others as ourselves. That is hard stuff, and yet that is what Christ is calling us to, and it's easy to say we will do that until we're actually asked to do it. And so often I and you and others were like Peter. Yes, Christ, of course I'll go where you want. And as soon as it actually comes to the crunch, we go, I didn't really mean it, and I didn't think you'd actually ask. So when we read this, I don't want any judgment of Peter. I don't want, oh, Peter, look at him saying those things and letting him down, because we are all Peter. With our friends, with our family, and most of all with God. We are all Peter. So that's why I love this reading. And I love it because I know the end of the story, where Peter and Jesus have a moment together again, and Peter's full of just remorse, and he can't believe that he's let Christ down. And Christ goes, I still love you, and actually I want you to be the one who starts the church. A lot to think about there. Read the passage again. Look at actually what's going on. What's Christ saying to you? The next one on Friday is when we get into the Garden of Gethsemane, and wow, what a passage that is. So we'll get into that on Friday, as I say, for another one of our morning prayers. Let's say the Lord's Prayer together, and then we'll end this time and move on. Let's pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. I'll see you guys on Friday. Until then, stay safe, look after one another, and may you know God with you. See you Friday.